approve the meeting, the meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve.
So,
Organizational issues, I wanted to thank everybody for the diligence that they've brought to the year. It has been a real challenge with a lot of people leaving and a lot of coming in, and some coming and going. I think it's really great that we have been able to fill the seats and be fully staffed at this point. And hopefully when we get back in the fall, people will be ready and raring to go. The fact that we have a hiatus over the summer doesn't mean that we need to stop working. Kevin has been very assiduous in the sunshine rules of if you have if you have everybody included on a reply to all, it's the equivalent of a meeting, so that if you need to have discussions about topics, you can have discussions about topics. You just can't have everybody involved without having transparency by sunshine law, because we are a function of the township. But if there are things that come up over the summer, I wouldn't hesitate to bring them up. And I think that we should spend the summer trying to think about how we can create the greatest impact moving through next year. And some of those things I think will become apparent as we work through the agenda now. And that was really the only comment I wanted to make. Does anybody else have anything going on from a logistics point of view? The other topic of logistics, I was just talking to Lisa. I should have spoken to Alex too about making some upgrades and improvements on the student intern program, getting a head start so that we can move quickly and maybe have the students in their seats by October, so that we can expect an outcome by April, say, because as Lisa points out, June, it's clear what happens. May, they're focusing on other things. They've got
a lot of exams, AP exams, things like that.
And all of that. So,
yeah.
And the seniors also are done earlier, which and I think maybe we flagged that, and then I don't know what ended up happening, but I would say maybe in the future we advertise it as a program for sophomores and juniors, with one exception, which would be that next year, since we had a couple of people where one of the considerations was they couldn't apply again, we would maybe kind of grandfather that in, but that really it might be best moving forward to advertise it as a program for sophomores and juniors. Because seniors they're just done earlier, so it kind of artificially cuts the schedule shorter.
I think your logic is sound. I'm not sure that I would exclude seniors, but I think including sophomores is going to give you a lot more heads, I think.
Well, I think
and I think if we move things up and we plan for a presentation in April, that will help with the senior, issue as well.
Yeah, and we did already include, we had sophomores apply previously.
Yeah,
so
we
they
did
are
last
already
year.
included.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I think we should be more proactive in helping them to select a topic, and I think that we might ought to encourage them to be a little bit less inward-looking, that is, say, something going on in the high school, and get them to look outward and make it more of a community function, something that it involves the township, but not necessarily is restricted to the high school. So being a little more proactive in helping them arrive to a topic. So that's something that we can think about over the summer. We can start to crystallize before the September meeting and act between the September meeting and October, and have them in their chairs in October. That would be a good thing. Okay? So the next, Alex, I put you on here only if you had something, since we're not doing a health officer's report anymore, since that has shifted out to the county.
Sure.
If there's anything that you wanted to bring up about this.
So for the month of May, the county did 11 inspections, 3 of which were follow-up inspections. All of the inspections that were done, the locations were found in overall compliance. And also happy to say that the 2 properties with the fewest violations were our very own Wayne and Radnor Elementary Schools for the month of May. Yes. Nope.
Okay, the items on the old business, we've already been over the COVID update. Anybody else have any input on that? There is one other thing, and that is, that I wanted to go over. And that is that, although death toll hasn't risen with either the Omicron wave or the wavelet that followed, and neither have ICU admissions, there have been hospitalization bumps. And I don't know what people are going into the hospital with now. And I think that the thing that is crystallizing in this pandemic that has not yet crystallized is the garbage can diagnosis of long COVID. And I don't call it a garbage can diagnosis because I don't believe that it exists. I just believe that anything that doesn't go away in 2 weeks is called long COVID. And I think that there are an array of different syndromes. And I'm hearing worrisome things about the latest that have been anecdotal, that there may be more long COVID with the Omicron variants, although the most recent article that I saw suggested that that was not the case. And I also think the country has long COVID. I think that if anything else had caused 1 million casualties in 2.5 years, we would not be back shelving it. If anything else had been a culling event for our grandparents, we would not be back shelving it. And I think that there's just so much fatigue, and there's been so much trial and tribulation that we want to just pretend that it's over and walk away. And you don't walk away from trauma like that. It's got to work its way out. So I think that we are going to see downstream repercussions, and I think we just have to keep our eyes open in that regard. So anybody else with comments on COVID?
Well, I think the statistics aren't necessarily reflecting like how many cases there are in the community, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
like all the home testing, we're not necessarily reporting those. So I think there's probably more cases than we're aware of, but what obviously is most important is hospitalization, serious illness, et cetera.
Yeah, so absolutely true. We have, one estimate was there are probably 8 times as many cases as we're seeing. But that would just mean that case fatality rates are even lower than we're calculating. And the percent positivity of 9 being green, well, that's pretty wild. And I still don't know why people are in hospital. There's still some people going into hospitals, but they're not getting in the ICU. So what are they in the hospital for? And I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, what I'm seeing at my hospital is that they're going in with other issues and then testing positive. Like at our hospital, we test everybody who goes into the hospital. But there still are a few ICU and very sick patients with COVID, but some of it is we're testing everybody.
All right. So Bob, you're on the agenda next for the follow-up on the oral caravan.
Oh, sure. So what I wanted to bring up was we have a couple of choices with the Colgate oral health van. One would be we have the oral health van parked on a Saturday here in the administration building and have the kids come here. One event that I thought might be useful would be the day that the free trees are given out, and also have the oral health, because you already have a group of people here, and they can bring the children and have a free oral health exam at the same time, get toothbrushes and toothpaste, and learn how to floss and brush. The other is do it at one of the schools, maybe one of the middle schools, or we can do both. So Colgate is very receptive. They will help us in any way that we want. So I just wanted to get a consensus from the group on which way we want to head and potential dates. That's where I'm headed.
So I can make lots of hard decisions, but when I have to choose between cake and pie, I want both. And so that's how I would respond to that. If we can have both, I think that makes sense, because there's no doubt oral health is it's always going to be out there, and it's an opportunity. I would ask if you would reach out. I don't know exactly whether you should reach out to Kevin or to directly Mr. White. What about the logistics of if you try to do 2 at once, is it logistically feasible? Okay. And if it were logistically feasible, I think it's just like one restaurant is one thing, a restaurant row is another thing.
Yeah.
And having a volume gives you an opportunity to have greater impact. So if you would, why don't you reach out to Kevin, if you would, please, and ask him who to talk to about the logistics of that, and if that would work.
So
And then if we can figure out a way to do 2 events, space them appropriately, have one with the tree or whatever township event, and one at one of the schools, I think that's great.
Okay. What we're gonna do at Jefferson and the city is, we're gonna have the oral health fan the same day that Will's Eye does their eye screening on a Saturday. So like you said,
Yeah.
2 restaurants in one location.
So my only concern there is to make sure that the people who are doing the planned event don't have a logistical concern, and if they don't, I think that's great.
Okay.
People will be coming.
So that
And
would
the
be
people
my
who don't know
challenge.
about trees come for the oral, look for a tree, and the people who don't know about the oral and come for a tree will get the bonus of having that opportunity. I think it's great. Any other
The
comments?
beauty of doing it with the trees is, there's deciduous teeth and there's deciduous trees.
How about that? I like it. So next topic is Joan, and these are 2 things that have a life of their own, the health ordinances and road safety project. And without Joan, we don't really have much to go with there. I think that they're both working their way through, and maybe come September, we can close those projects out and take them off the old business agenda. The next on the agenda was the follow-up on public participation. Sarah is in the audience. The good news is that there will be a fan distribution program this year. I don't have any bad news, but I don't have really any other news. I know that Maggie has brought it up to the Board of Health about cooling centers and the availability of cooling centers, but I don't have any further update on that. And Maggie was going to get in touch with Mr. White, but Maggie's out of town, and I just don't have any update. But that obviously.
Can I say something?
Sure. Yeah, well, then this building as well.
Sarah Pelling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I came today to say thank you. But before I say thank you, my grandmother, who was very much of a force in my life, as she cadged me into the kitchen to wash dishes for about 22 people coming for dinner, because you can't have a cesspool at the shore and have a dishwasher, she would say to me, many hands make light work. And I think the many hands of David and Maggie and you all not saying, oh, we don't need fans. And Jake Abel, who took the ball and ran with it and crossed Mr. White and talked to the county, and Chris Quinn, who has stated fans and cooling centers. We might just pull it off this summer. The hard part is we never know when there's going to be a heat wave. A heat wave is 3 days over 90 degrees, and I just got a notice in Facebook on my screen that it's going to be over 100 degrees for 4 or 5 days in the southeast. So one more time, we're bypassed. I would hope that all of us would keep our eye on the weather, because you can't say when it's going to happen. You can't say how long it's happened. It's you say after 3 or 4 days, you go, oh my God, this is hot. And then how do you jump forward and get it open? But I hope that we will stay alert to it. It's not that we're not being affected. Personally, the Schrodenbachs, and Barb taught in the school system for 30 years and is very big in the League of Women Voters, flew to Phoenix, Arizona last week, and it was 113 degrees when they climbed off the plane. And then they went north to their son in Flagstaff, and that was on a Saturday. And Sunday, they had to be evacuated because of the wildfires. And the kids insisted that they take the chickens too. Well, fortunately, the wind changed direction, so they were able to come back. So the answer is we all need to sort of be alert and on our toes
I think that we're quite lucky to have made it to, when I was young, 3 days in a row of 90 before June 21st would have been rare. Now that I'm old, 3 days of 90 before June 21st is rare. And you don't have to believe in the human causes of global warming to know that that's just the way it is. I also think that we should not fall back on purely relying on the government. I think it's critical that the government act in our interests, but I also think that we need to be good neighbors, just like we should be good neighbors when it comes to treating people with respect with regard to their choices around avoiding COVID. I think we should be good neighbors and keep our eyes out and act when we can when there's an obvious need. So that's just an editorial on my part. Any other comments there? Okay. The next item on the old business is the ongoing relationship with the county. And I would like to have had somebody in from the county for this meeting. I couldn't make that happen. I think I'll try and do it for September. I'm going to have to decide whether it's September or October. But I'd like people not replying to all, just send me an email with what you think are the key issues that you have in mind for our relationship with the County Department of Health. And then I think we can make it a more, make it a better dialogue if we have a better sense of the things that we might want to do or find out from them or whatever. And so that's all I really have on that. Any comments? With that, we now come to the student intern project final report, and this is novel.
Is this microphone on? I don't think so.
Okay, hello. Just trying
Hello.
to figure out slideshow. Here we are.
So like we are going to talk about the effects of excessive headphone use on hearing in a Radnor high school. The first one we were talking about is like the general overview of headphone associated hearing loss. So like the overview can be like risk. The first will be the risk factors and causes of hearing loss, and the headphone uses and hearing loss associations, and some explanation of hearing loss on a biological level, and the common symptoms of hearing loss, and prophylactic measures and suggestions, and lastly, the question, which is hearing loss reversible? So okay, so like what is hearing loss? Our hearing loss is that a person can still hear sounds well enough to participate in conversations. They can improve their hearing ability through hearing aids or other treatments. And the hearing loss is different from deafness, as someone who is deaf can hear very little or nothing at all. But hearing aids and hearing aids and devices don't help. A person who is deaf may use sign language to communicate. Risk factors and causes of hearing loss. Nearly 1.1 billion young people are at risk of potentially life-altering hearing loss due to loud noise exposure. And WHO defines this noise-induced hearing loss as being caused by sustained exposure to moderately loud noise, which is 85 decibels for 8 hours, and short-term exposure to very loud sounds, which is 15 minutes listening to sound over 100 decibels. And why young people in particular are at such high risk of noise-induced hearing loss. WHO outlines risk factors such as bars, clubs, and music venues as causing hearing damage. However, the biggest problem faced is through listening to loud music using headphones or on a smart device. Headphones and hearing loss associations. Data on the right shows that under 35 second, 35 second.
35 years old.
Okay. 35, percent, right?
Data shows that people under 35 years old, yeah.
Yeah. Data shows that under 35 are more likely to listen to music using mobile device than other age demographics. Of course, WHO suggests 50% are listening to music while wearing headphones that are too loud. The figure shows that they do this at a much higher rate than older individuals. On an Apple iPhone, the maximum volume while wearing headphones is equal to 102 decibels. This means that hearing damage can occur after listening to just a few songs at this range. A study in 2010 by Harvard Medical School in the US found that the rise in popularity of headphones has significantly increased the rate of hearing loss diagnosed in individuals under the age of 20. Hearing loss on a biological level. In the nature world, we rarely come across very loud sounds. The human ear has not evolved to manage loud sounds, but is built to pick up on gentle sounds. When we introduce artificially loud sounds through headphones or earbuds, we can end up damaging our ears. Sensorian neural hearing loss. Sound is created as a sensory reaction in your brain following the vibration of tiny hairs within a chamber in your inner ear. Loud music increases the strength of these vibrations. If the vibrations are too intense for too long, the hairs are unable to cope with the load and stop working properly. Depending on how long you listen to music for and how loud the music was, two things can happen. The first one is the hair can be damaged and may have lost sensitivity, but they can recover over time. This is why you may find it hard to hear after living a noisy place, but eventually your hearing returns to normal. If too much damage is done, the hairs are beyond repair. The damage to your hearing has become permanent. So like the degree of hearing loss is dependent on the degree of the damage to the hairs. So like there's like three kinds of the degree of hearing loss. The first one is the mild hearing loss. It is a loss of hearing between 26 to 40 decibels. Second is moderate hearing loss. It is a hearing loss between 41 to 55 decibels. And the last one is severe hearing loss, which is a loss of hearing more than 71 decibels. Common symptoms of hearing loss. So like the first one can be like a tinnitus, which is a persistent ringing in one or both ear. Regularly asking people, and like the second one can be like the regularly asking people to repeat what they just said. And the third one is mishearing things. And the last one can be clear difficulty hearing or partial deafness. So like there's like common symptoms of hearing loss. There's the outcomes of the hearing loss, which is disconnection from the world, frustration, irritability, and anger, severe hearing loss, and anger. Severe hearing loss results in anxiety and depression, and students with hearing loss may struggle in school and get poor grades. Prophylactic measures. So like the first one can be turn the volume down. Noise of 80 decibels can be listened to for over 25 hours straight without risk of hearing damage. On an iPhone, that's around 60% of maximum volume. For 60-60 rules, it can be 6% music player volume for 60 minutes. So like you can kind of just follow this rule to in order to like recover or like just prevent the hearing loss. The second can be the set control on phones. So like you can just like make kind of set for the phones to like not pass you like the certain volume. The third one can be don't turn the volume down as well up in loud environment. So like when you kind of just in like a loud environment, you kind of automatically just like up like make like the volume up. But like for the purpose of putting on the background noise, instead of raising the volume, trying to wear noise canceling headphones. And the fourth one can be the limit exposure. It's like you don't. It's like you can like not use like the headphones and earbuds like often than before. And the last one can be used over the ear headphones. The over ear headphones as compared to inner ear earbuds, right? Gentler on the ear as the sound is applied in a less direct way to the eardrum. So like can be the question, is hearing loss reversible? There's no way to reverse damage caused the inner ear. Once the hair in your inner ear are destroyed to the point that they cannot repair themselves, they're lost for the rest of the life.
Alright, so now we're going to move into some of the research that extends beyond our basic literature review of headphones and how it associates with hearing loss. So now we're going to talk about information on teens' most commonly used headphones today. So I came up with a list of the most commonly used headphones by teenagers, and the most important thing to note with all of these headphones is, as Hajun stated before, even a short exposure to a decibel level of 100 decibels or more can be incredibly damaging to the ear and can have long-lasting effects. So it was just really interesting to see that all of these top high-end headphones certainly do surpass that limit, and used for extended periods of time that can certainly be damaging, so that is to be cautious about. So here I have just a couple of examples. The Apple AirPods Pro, Beats headphones, gaming headphones, and then if we go on to the next slide, the Bose headphones, and then the Apple EarPods, not the AirPods, and then the Beats earbuds. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about the pandemic specifically and how headphone use, especially due to the advent of virtual learning when everything was on Zoom and video recordings and lectures were prominently used, how that had a main impact on headphone use and hearing loss subsequently. So with the COVID-19 pandemic forcing professionals to work from home and students to attend classes online without earphones, doctors are now getting more patients with complaints of pain, irritation, and infection in the ears. And to quote Dr. Srinivas Chavin, who is the head of the ENT department at the government-run JJ Hospital in Mumbai, India, he says all of these complaints are directly linked to extensive use of headphones at higher volume. Most of them are working for more than 8 hours wearing headphones. This is putting a lot of stress on their ears, and unsterilized earpods or earplugs could spread infection. Continuous listening at higher sound volume for long hours is weakening the listening ability as well. And this was a quote taken during, I believe, the height of the pandemic when everything was virtual and so many people were coming in with similar complaints as this. All right, so now to continue with excessive headphone use during the pandemic. According to the Tribune, the sudden increase in headphone use during and after the pandemic is predicted to lead to a decrease in adolescents' auditory function. Almost all of virtual learning consists of Zoom or video chat calls, recorded lectures, and video demonstrations, which all require the use of headphones if learning is to be done in a household alongside other working people, which of course is the case for most children. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about specifically headphone use in Radnor High School. So just to gather some headphone inventory, when I asked around and talked with our principal, Mrs. Kevgis, she gave us information and statistics on the inventory as to the earbuds that were bought during the 2020 COVID school year. She said that there were 1,250 sets of earbuds purchased that year, and the brand was lowcostearbuds.com. And so I did a little bit more digging. I went on their website. I tried to find the maximum decibel level on these earbuds, but unfortunately I couldn't. But just from experience using these earbuds and, talking to other classmates as well, they are pretty flimsy. They are meant to be bought in bulk and used for schools, so they're not the best quality, which actually is, believe it or not, a great thing because they can't support as clear or as loud as a volume level as Apple AirPods, for example, can. So they definitely are safer on the ears, and it definitely is a good option when it comes to school-issued earbuds, especially during the pandemic when everyone was using these ones specifically. Alright, so next moving on to our student survey portion. So I selected 5 of my peers and I asked them to take note of their headphone usage in 1 week. I asked them to note it down at the end of the day for all 7 days in that week. I asked them to note down the volume level they used when they were listening to media using their headphones, as well as the total duration that they listened to this media using headphones with. So as you can see, I wrote down all the data for each student. That's students 4 through 5. And what we ultimately found, so for some summary statistics, was that the average headphone use per day was 67.3 minutes. And the average volume per day was 38.14% of the max volume available on that device. So we did ultimately find that the 60-60 rule is met, and just as a reminder, as Hajin mentioned before, the 60-60 rule is a recommendation for safe headphone use that recommends that for every 60 minutes you listened to media on your device at 60% of the total possible volume, and to always maintain this ratio for safe usage. So we did note that this ratio was met, and although some of the students, some individuals in particular, were right at the mark, or some of them were also slightly over and didn't exactly meet the ratio, for the general population, for the majority of them, they did meet it, and overall the summary statistics show that they did meet it overall. So it's good headphone use we'd like to observe. So moving on, all 5 students surveyed agreed that their headphone usage drastically decreased since returning to in-person school. During this time, 4 out of 5 students reported using headphones for at least 7 hours per day, which is obviously, now coming out of the pandemic, headphone use has certainly decreased drastically. So if we had taken this survey back during the height of the pandemic, the numbers I'm sure would have been different, and I can't guarantee that the 60-60 rule would have been met at that time. Okay.
Yeah, it's like moving on. We did the additional survey for the about the teachers. We asked 4 teachers about the pandemic and earbuds for headphone uses. As a result, 3 out of 4 teachers uses headphone less than an hour. Also, all 4 teachers didn't notice any hearing loss due to the usage of headphones. In conclusion, as there is less time the teachers use the earbuds or the headphones, there is a less probability that they will have hearing loss symptoms.
All right, that's it from us. Thank you guys so much for listening. We definitely had so much fun researching and putting together this project over the course of the year. And I hope you guys learned something. We definitely learned a lot. And June, do you want to say anything else?
I mean, it is really a pleasure to work with you guys. And yeah, since I'm South Korea when this is like video, I mean, when this video is shown, yeah, I'm kind of like looking forward to see you guys like after this internship. Thank you.
Yep. Wait, I can figure out how to pause the recording.
I'll figure it out too. There we go.
Any comments? I think they did a nice job under some challenging circumstances. And Maggie gave them their certificates. Is that right? Great.
Alex took care of that, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So Maggie's not here to update the BOC. Jenny's not here to update the school district. And since this is a non-quorum meeting, I don't think we should bring up any other new business unless it's something that we want to broadcast out to the rest of the folks. Anything important? And public participation, Sarah had her moment, and she seems to have gone. So with that, I'll put together minutes of this meeting, since Kathy's not here to do it. I didn't ask anybody else. Big mistake. And the only, I don't believe our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 18th. I believe it's sometime in September, and we'll warn you coming at it. So if I can have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn?
All in agreement? Meeting is adjourned.